My name is Michelle Yun Maplethorpe, and I'm Vice President for Global Artistic Programs and Director of the Asia Society Museum. Thank you for attending the premiere of Tear, a performance by Samita Sinha, commissioned by Asia Society Museum, New York for the inaugural Asia Society Triennial, We Do Not Dream Alone. This performance is presented in conjunction with Part 2 of the Asia Society Triennial, which is on view through June 27th. The exhibition is free and open to the public, and we welcome you to come to the museum for a visit for our final few weeks. Time tickets may be reserved through the Asia Society Triennial website. Part 1 of the Triennial was on view from October 27th, 2020 to February 7th, 2021. And for those of you who missed Part 1 or are not able to travel to visit the museum for Part 2, virtual tours for both parts of the exhibition are accessible through the Asia Society Triennial website. This evening is the fourth of our 6-part virtual programming series featuring performances and films as part of the Triennial. Please refer to the Triennial website for more information on this performance and others in the series. The next program is the premiere of Don't Look on Thursday, June 10th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which showcases short films by Hiten Patel with new music by Amy May. The Asia Society Triennial is the first initiative of its kind in the United States. Its structure is a multidisciplinary and multi-venue platform with a mandate to champion contemporary Asian and Asian American artists within a global context. The Triennial provides an internationally recognized platform for these artists to push the boundaries of their respective art practices and celebrates the power of art to underscore our common humanity amid this moment of divisiveness and disruption. We hope that during this period of great discrimination, that the Triennial We Do Not Dream Alone can offer much needed solace through the healing potential of art to unite and empower. The initiative was co-curated by myself and my predecessor, Boon Hui Tan, who is the founding artistic director of the Triennial. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Agnes Xu Tang for her leadership role as executive chair of the Asia Society Triennial and chair of the steering committee. For our members who are tuning in, we thank you so much for your steadfast support of our work, especially now. Your generosity nourishes our resolve to persevere despite these challenging times. And for those of you who are new to Asia Society, we encourage you to become involved. Membership details may be found on our website. This ambitious undertaking would not be possible without the support of our many sponsors and supporters. I'd like to especially acknowledge the support of the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation for tonight's performance. Please enjoy Samita Sinha's Tear. Following the performance, please join us for a discussion with the artist moderated by Sarah McCaffrey, Manager of Interdisciplinary Arts at Asia Society Museum, New York. Now please enjoy the program. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us for the premiere of CARE. My name is Sarah McCaffrey, and I'm the manager of interdisciplinary arts at Asia Society Museum, New York. It is my immense pleasure to introduce artist Samita Sinha, who will join me now for a discussion. Samita is a vocalist, performer, composer, and educator who creates multidisciplinary work with sound and performance that investigate the origins of work. She synthesizes Indian vocal traditions and embodied energetic practices to create a contemporary, decolonized, multivalent language of vibration and transformation. The artist received an MFA in music and sound from Bard College and a BA in literature from Yale University. And I also wanted to share that tonight's presentation of Terror is really another chapter of an ongoing relationship that Asia Society and the staff at Asia Society have had with Samita. So it gives me absolute pleasure to be in conversation with her this evening and to hear more about the process of creating this new work. So Samita, please join me and welcome into this space.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you, Asia Society, for presenting this unexpected format of this work and partnering with me for so long.
Yes, it's been quite a journey and a beautiful one. And yeah, in thinking of where we are now and in experience, just having experienced Terror, I thought that we might start by talking about the composition of the work itself. I thought that might be a good way to enter the work. And you have described the work as an unraveling from a single utterance of Hindustani classical vocal composition. And I experienced it very much as a continuation of your artistic practice of working with Indian vocal traditions. So I was wondering if you could share more about the unraveling that happens in the composition of Terror.
Yeah, I guess I'll just start by saying that it was Terror. I originally thought that I would use an entire, well, I'll start actually a little farther back and say that I have a long time practice of taking apart Indian vocal traditions through the body to really understand the material of vibration and what it can do and what it can open, where it can go, what forces, what energies, what characters, what people, what connections. So yeah, Terror was working with a very specific space, a very specific state, you could say. And my original thought was to use an entire bandish, it's called, or composition, long form composition from Hindustani music, and take micro sounds of it to make this whole architecture. But the more I stayed true to what the Terror is, the opening that it is, the more the piece kind of demanded, or the Terror demanded, that I not move past, that I stay, that I really stay, and I find a way to stay. So the composition really evolved from staying true to the space of the Terror into this one utterance that I followed, like a thread or a fray or something like that.
Right. And this thread, this fray, like this unraveling, I make connotations to the unraveling that's happening in our world right now, that we're experiencing whether we think about the global pandemic or, a heightened reckoning with systemic racism and, heightened violence due to xenophobia, like there's so much unraveling that's going on. And part of the provocation that you offered in the description of the work is how do we stay in the tear? So I'm wondering, is the composition a way of staying there, of kind of staying in the unraveling and in the wound? And can you speak a little bit more about the unraveling and staying?
Gosh, yeah. The tear, actually, before it was called tear, I want to actually name my collaborators because I realized they were not credited in the beginning. Sunil Bald has been a deep collaborator through this whole journey, and Brian Chase and Chaikin Records did the gorgeous audio post-production that we all heard. So Sunil actually introduced me to the concept of kintsugi in Japanese ceramic arts. And so before the pandemic, actually, I was thinking about this ceramic art in which the breaks are kind of lovingly repaired with gold paint, where the rupture, the fault line is still present and actually accentuated. So this idea of a gesture where rupture and repair were present in the same space was fascinating to me in relation to sound and how I work with sound, and thinking about how the fragments that I use of Indian classical music could be thought of as these little shards. What is it to utter the rupture and the repair in one utterance? So that has been that had been there for quite some time. And the more we worked and the more I sort of went deep into this idea, the more it sort of migrated away from kintsugi as the origin metaphor and became more specific. The state of the tear, alongside everything that was happening in the world, alongside every day. Every day there was something to metabolize. Every day there was an image to work with, or something to imagine, through these four walls, and through the container of one tone, to travel into and just attempt to be with what was happening. So I thought, how do you be with this kind of state of unravel? And to me, the strongest, I wouldn't call it an answer, but the strongest maybe proposition was to stay right there in that open space, in the space that is exposed, in the space that's sort of ripped open, where brokenness is like, okay, here it is. How do you stay right there? And of course, there's a double connotation of tear and tear. And so there's something about also the dissolve. Yeah, maybe that's all I can say.
And when you are thinking of staying in the tear, you mentioned that maybe your container was this single utterance. So I'm thinking of the word one. So like you have this one utterance, and then you have the ektara, which is the one stringed instrument. And then you have the one body, you. And, in this description of the work, you spoke about how does a single body in pandemic isolation work in the tear. So I was wondering if you could speak to how these ones, body, instrument, single utterance, are coming together. How are they weaving together to support staying with, the wound?
I think there's so much, there's the infinity that you can find in the tiny, tiny portals, is something that was maybe imposed upon us this whole year. And there's something about that limit, that limit, like, okay, because with sound, you can go anywhere, right? You can make a billion sounds, in a minute, or so something about staying with this, distilling down so much, to this one utterance, to this one tone. The ek tara, ek means one in one string, actually allows for a wild, it's very vast. It's very vast. Maybe it's not a contradiction, but and there's so many beings that can come through that one space. So it's the possibility of sort of hosting. I like to talk about hosting different energies, different forces, different feelings. The smaller the container, the more powerful that felt.
Mm-hmm. Right, right. So within this container, it was opening up multiplicities and a sort of space for transformation. Is that how you think about it? And what can happen in that space?
Yeah, gosh, that space is really, I mean, it's wide open. I think that space, I don't put too much on it, I don't think one can demand anything of that tear. I think one can only be there. And I think maybe that's, to actually stop doing so much. And it forced myself also to slow down, because it really does. It's such a task to stay there and to understand, and to learn from that, right? To learn from what that is to stay. Yeah, it's not so much like a drive to transform,
Mm-hmm.
or even a statement that I will transform. Da, 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 da. It's just really about staying there, and then the thing happens.
Right, right, right. And that really struck me throughout the experience of watching Terror, is like this durational relationship with that single utterance, and kind of like this commitment to continuously go back. So I was wondering, did you have a score that kept you to a certain commitment or relationship to that utterance, or did you have certain parts that were kind of structured and then it was an improv? I'd be curious to hear how much of it was structured and how you thought about the composition kind of evolving and sprouting as it happened.
Actually, oops, I'm sorry, I'm already unmuted. Okay. You can hear me, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, the composition. The strongest structural thing was physical and somatic, I would say. So understanding what my body began, where my body began and where it ended, and what happened in the middle. Actually, the body as the container gave the structure for how the tone might move. So it was, the vibration would have different shapes and different kind of energetic shapes within the body. So the structure, the composition was really structured kind of somatically, sensationally. And then there was quite a lot of improvisation to follow what emerged.
And that somatic shaping of kind of like these physical positions. I mean, to start on your knees, you know, there's a vulnerability there. And I mean, it makes sense because you're in the world of the tear, but there's such a vulnerability to be on one's knees. And then, you know, there's kind of a swell at one point and you kind of raise yourself up on your knees. And then later on, there's kind of a changing into a spiral with your legs in a spiral position. And it's very evocative how there's these minimal body positions, but they're so powerful. And, you know, I don't feel that they're being shaped from an aesthetic point of view. It seems like it's coming from somewhere else. Like as you're saying, like the voice and the breath and the body, they're kind of all coming together for an intention. Could you speak more about that? Kind of like the physical manifestations and how they're relating to other things that you're working with.
I would say two things. One thing about being on the knees, which is so particular and a very particular feeling state. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to also invoke this word in Sanskrit called bhav or bhava, which is with me really strongly these days. And it can mean emotion, or state, or absorption, you know, absorption or devotion, a kind of state of absorption. So it's used in aesthetics and in spirituality as well. But the bhav, thinking about how to evoke the bhav of tear, the bhav of the tear, was something that being on my knees felt right somehow. And I would also say that the center of gravity, being low in the body, gives a whole different access to different energies. The proximity to the ground really matters. The endurance of being on the knees too is it's hard, and that mattered. And finally, I would say about the physical manifestations, about what you say very, very astutely, about that the body is not being shaped by aesthetic concerns, but really it is this hosting of vibration and following the material of the vibration and all of its associated forms that come and dissolve, people, echoes of people, scraps of information. So the vibration is so material rich. I mean, it really does. I feel like it really does cross time and space. That's what vibration does. You know, it is life. And so to be able, when I really go into the vibration, my body is really following it.
Right. And while we are talking about kind of like embodied energetics and vibration, I'm wondering, what practices are you drawing on? Like, are you drawing on specific embodied, you know, somatic disciplines that you've studied and then kind of combined together? I'm just wondering where you are now in your artistic practice, and specifically in this piece, Tear.
It's a rich question. Yeah, the three primary traditions that I've really spent deep time with um, have been this lifelong journey beside Hindustani classical music um, and Qigong, Chinese energetic practice, um, and Bengali Baul folk tradition, where the ektara comes from, the instrument comes from. So, yeah, at this point in my practice, there's not really a directness of like working exactly with this tradition in this way and then adapting it in this way. I would say at this point, I've kind of alchemized my work with all of them. And the thing I'm most interested in is how to kind of get inside and almost like what happens when you decreate the form, uncreate the form, and you're left just with that vibrational energetic shape or impulse or power or just that force. um, how to work with that, because that force is so potent and can touch so much and can so much can be worked with from that force. So I think tear in some ways it's a rebirthing moment of my practice, and sort of everything sort of got almost composted together in the spirit of also this time, like this question of like what needs to die, what needs to grow, what is not yet here, what is not yet born, and how to be with all of that, how to listen to all of that, how to host the death of something, how to host the birth of something, how to listen to what's not there yet. All of these things have been on my mind. So yeah, Tara in some ways is a really exciting distillation of a lot of the way that I've worked with these practices.
Mm, mm. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I was wondering how all these practices were coming together. And I guess kind of in the immensity of that work to decide like what you're saying in Tara, what needs to die, what is, in your imagining of what is yet to be born. I mean, these are such big and, you know, uh, full soul, full being, full everything is necessary to kind of contemplate this. What were the biggest tensions or challenges that you faced when you were asking yourself of all of this? And it actually, even that Tara was asking this. What were the biggest tensions?
The interesting thing is I don't have to ask with my mind in this work. So there's actually not the hardest thing is to actually enter the space. The hardest thing is to like truly be there. And so I think the tensions were really about, how to turn down noise enough, and how to slow down enough to stay there, and then turn on these other senses, these other ways of knowing that I think are innumerable. There's so many other intelligences in here and in there and out there, and so actually making that connection between myself and the channels of vibration. Once that's open, there's not so much confusion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, and in that vein then, if like one of maybe the challenges was kind of quieting down and kind of focusing, I could see the veil being kind of an instrument or maybe like a collaborator in helping to get there. And of course, a veil has many connotations. So I thought that we might take a moment to discuss it. And I would love to hear more about the veil and how it is with you in TER.
Big juicy question. Yeah, it's I don't know, the veil was a way for me to be other than myself. Maybe that's most important, that it gave me like a space, literally a space inside of which to be much vaster than the self I feel that I am here right now, you know, talking to you, this sort of supposedly supposedly singular self, which doesn't feel true ever. But somehow the veil allows that that all to come out. And I would say it was important to me to be anonymous and to feel yeah, to feel like I could be anyone. I would also say that, you know, I have it here, this cloth, and I think of this as a it's kind of it's both makes a boundary and it demarcates a boundary, and but that boundary that boundary is both bounded, but it also is makes porous that boundary. And so somehow it both defines and makes porous a boundary at the same time. And I think makes the interior space that much vaster.
Right. And
Sarah, I'll just say also the various associations with veils also are there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And you know, in this different format of presenting this work online, you know, some people are watching via a YouTube live stream. This is so different from being in person. And I feel you know, we have the screen as a kind of veil. We have the veil and the piece. Like there are kind of like, you know, as if you say like the veil is bounded but porous, you know, it's kind of like a kind of multi-dimensional thing of thinking about how one experiences this piece, especially online. And I was wondering if you could speak more to that. And yeah, what has been the process of thinking about creating this and presenting this for a virtual audience?
Yeah, the thought of this work living online was not easy. And having it experienced, having vibration experienced, you know, through a virtual piece is not easy. And so I think that the veil is also a protection. You know, it's a kind of protection against the internet, right? It's like you know, it's a way to shroud that which is being unveiled
Mm-hmm.
in this very wild medium, and which, you know, in a live performance it's so different, right? And you don't, and I get tongue-tied even trying to talk about the difference between this kind of work living online and living, you know, in person, where everybody comes together to a place for something to occur, and the work is done in a place and time, and, you know, and then it is over, and that experience resonates and reverberates. Online, everything gets weird and flat, and time and space, everything, and in a kind of exciting way too. I mean, it also is an really exciting possibility. So I have a lot of resistance to trying to do this online, but in the end, there was something really satisfying about creating something so kind of, you know, in the box of the iPhone camera that, you know, Sunil did, and in this like heightened audio production that Brian did, and in my performance within a certain frame. And so, yeah, I might have gotten away from your question, but the veil did feel also like it allowed me to figure out how the hell to make a work that would live online. The veil was a friend to that quandary.
Right, right, right. And and thinking about the friend here, I feel like it creates like such an interior space. Almost when watching Tear, it's like I'm watching something so private, so so core to like someone's essence, or maybe not someone, but something's essence, that it really is so provocative, and so powerful. And within that deep interiority, I start to feel that interiority, and like I start to breathe with that one utterance. So there's this kind of like collectivity, and we kind of touched upon it earlier, but I'm thinking more and more about kind of like the oneness. We talked about the oneness of the performer, the oneness of that utterance, the oneness of the instrument, but how that is one and the same with multiplicity and other people, other ones. So I was wondering if you could speak more about that.
I sort of got beautifully lost in everything you said. I love what you say about the core of not necessarily someone, but something. And thinking about what it is to have, to work with a kind of essence. And to take it into who knows where, to follow it into who knows where. That activity, the veil is also a sort of, it's like a magical cloak that allows for those emergences. Because you don't know what's going to come. You don't know what's going to come. You don't, and it also, I also like the way it creates, I guess, visually, to speak of it as more, object-hood wise. There is a way also, it creates a different creatureliness, It's something a little bit different from, this. It creates different shapes, different associations. So I'm sorry, can you say the last bit of your question? I got so hung up on this essence part.
Yeah, what I was wondering is, because what is being shared, the essence is so deeply shared, I feel like it opens up relations between other people and other ones, because we were talking about earlier, like the one voice, the one body, kind of like this deep interiority, but how that, like, it's all connected with others, I feel. And I was wondering, am I feeling this right? Like,
Yes. Right. Okay, I understand your question.
Right.
Yeah, no, I love, this is the other part that you said that I was just getting lost in when you talked about your experience. That's my dream, which is I can never prescribe. You can only hope, you can only offer, and people will receive as they receive, and depending on where they are and all of it. But the hope is that it can, that the thread is such that another can follow it into, and the thread is, it's coming from, interiority is an interesting word, because it's not personal per se. My person is definitely the one doing it, but I think when I start to serve vibration, the material of vibration, when I really do my job, when I do my work, that material opens from my interior, the other interior channels
Right.
are available.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, it's part of what I'm saying about sense. And you said, you know, how do I decide what needs to be, what needs to die, what needs to, but it's this, when I open that sense, I hope that another can come inside as well.
Mhm.
And that's my, you know, that's the drawing the thread and offering the thread is like, okay, come on this journey.
Right.
And I do think that breath and working with embodied sound really is like such a primary communication. If another is willing to listen, if another is willing to receive that sound, it can be experienced from body to body, energy system to energy system.
Right. And what a pleasure it is to, you know, have been part of supporting this work that, you know, opens up this connective thread, especially at a time when we are isolated and, you know, facing so many difficulties, challenges and whatnot. So yeah, if we're talking about, you know, even the challenges of presenting something virtually, you know, here are the possibilities that you're exploring of creating threads, you know, through these online portals, should we say.
That is the
But we,
word.
yeah. Believe it or not, we are actually at the end of our hour together. But before we depart, I wanted to ask Samita, is there anything that you want to share? Or, yeah.
Yeah, there is. I want to talk about the impossible scale of loss and possibility, and how simultaneous that is, and how my small hope, a humble hope, that this piece can be some sort of an offering of how to be, how to really feel into the immensity of that opening. Because we're not so good at feeling at this moment, where I think there's a lot of skipping of steps, and it's a bit terrifying of like how will we emerge from such a potent time. And so, you know, tear aside, I just want to invoke this, as you say, portal of loss and possibility as a place to just really stay.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Sarah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thank you for all of your work over all of these years.
Yes, it's been an absolute, like a beautiful journey, you know, working with you after all these years. And I'm so delighted that we were able to present TEAR as part of the inaugural Asia Society Triennial. And TEAR very much, to your hope, lives on. So it'll be on the internet, and it will continue to be a portal from now on. So yeah, I'm delighted to have presented this tonight and to be in conversation with you. Thank you so much, Samita.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.